Jessica's heart raced as she stared at her phone, reading the playful messages from her colleague Tom. What had started as innocent work-related chats and shared coffee breaks had slowly turned into something more flirtatious. "How about grabbing a drink after work?" Tom suggested one Friday evening. "It'll be fun, just the two of us." Jessica hesitated. She was torn between loyalty to her husband, Mark, and the thrill of Tom's attention. Recently, Mark had been absorbed in his work, and their relationship had lost some of its spark. "It's just one drink. It won't hurt," she reassured herself, walking into the bar with a mix of excitement and guilt. Tom was already there, his charming smile making her heart flutter. They talked and laughed, the energy between them electric. As the night drew to a close, they found themselves closer than before. Jessica's heart raced as Tom leaned in to kiss her. She knew it was wrong, but the moment felt irresistible. One kiss led to another, and soon she was lost in the passion. The next morning, guilt weighed heavily on her. What had she done? She lay next to Mark, the warmth of his body contrasting sharply with the coldness she felt inside. She tried to act normal, but the guilt gnawed at her. Tom's messages both excited and frightened her. "Last night was incredible," he texted. "We should do it again." But deep down, she knew she couldn't. Mark deserved better. One evening, as Jessica cooked dinner, Mark came home with a smile. "I got tickets to that concert you love," he said, embracing her warmly. His affection only deepened her guilt. "That's great," she replied, forcing a smile. Days passed, and Mark seemed oblivious to the turmoil inside her. He showered her with love, hoping to rekindle their connection. But each compliment felt like a dagger to her heart, reminding her of her betrayal. A week later, Tom wouldn't let her go. He cornered her and said, "I miss you. Let's spend another night together." His eyes were full of longing. Jessica shook her head, her resolve weakening. "I can't, Tom. I made a mistake. You don't have to pretend anymore. You know you want this," he insisted, leaning in. The temptation was overwhelming. That night, Jessica returned home feeling like a ghost. Mark sat on the sofa, working on his laptop. He looked up, his smile fading as he noticed her troubled expression. "Is everything okay?" he asked, concern in his voice. "Yes, just a long day," she lied, forcing a smile. But it faded when she received a text from Tom. "I'll be at the bar alone tomorrow night." The next night, Jessica couldn't resist. Mark had gone to bed early, and with her heart pounding, she quietly slipped out, telling herself it would just be one drink. When she entered the bar, she immediately spotted Tom. He was waiting for her, his smile as charming as ever. They shared a drink, and the chemistry between them flared once more. Just as they were about to kiss, panic washed over her. "No, I can't do this," she exclaimed, pulling away. "Why not? We both know you want this," Tom urged, frustration creeping into his voice. "No, I don't. I love my husband," Jessica blurted out, though her voice sounded weak. She felt her resolve crumbling. Then, her eyes landed on a familiar face in the crowd. Mark was standing at the entrance, his expression a mix of shock and betrayal. Jessica's heart sank, and the ground seemed to fall away beneath her. "Mark!" she called out, but he turned and walked away without waiting for her to catch up. Tom grinned, a mischievous look on his face, as though he had caught her in the act. "What did you expect?" Panic surged inside Jessica as she realized the gravity of what had just happened. She hadn't intended for any of this to unfold the way it had. "Why did you even come here?" Tom asked, leaning back with an air of casual indifference. The weight of her choices pressed down on her chest. "I need to go," she cried, rushing after Mark. But by the time she reached the door, he was already gone. The next several days were agonizing. Mark's silence hung in the air like an oppressive fog, and the guilt she carried felt suffocating. She tried to reach out, but he didn't respond. Their home felt like an empty shell, devoid of warmth, filled only with silence and unspoken resentment. Later, While tidying up, Jessica made a shocking discovery. She accidentally opened a small notebook in Mark's drawer, revealing a meticulously detailed travel plan. Mark had been secretly organizing a trip to an exotic destination, one they had dreamed of visiting for years, but had never gotten around to. As her eyes skimmed the page, she saw that next to the travel details were names and phone numbers, contacts of women he had been in touch with. Panic gripped her. Was he planning to go without her? That evening, when she confronted him, Mark remained cold, his distance painfully evident. "I can't keep pretending everything is okay," he said bluntly. "Are you really going to do this?" Jessica demanded, her voice thick with pain. "You're going to hurt me like this just because I made a mistake." "You don't get to play the victim here," Mark replied, anguish flashing across his face. "You let me down. You made your choice." The air between them crackled with tension, and in that moment, Jessica realized their relationship was hanging by a thread. "What if we try to fix this?" she pleaded, desperation creeping into her voice. Mark shook his head. "I need time, space. Maybe being with someone else will help me figure things out." With that, he left, leaving Jessica in the hollow silence of their home. Days turned into weeks, and Mark's absence only deepened her heartache. He continued his travels while Jessica stayed behind, wrestling with her emotions. She tried to bury herself in work, but every moment reminded her of the mistake she had made. One evening, she received a text from Tom. "I miss you. When can we meet again?" Jessica stared at the message, her heart racing. She realized she was still trapped in the cycle of guilt and desire. In a moment of weakness, she replied, "Tomorrow." The next day, she met Tom at the bar, but as soon as she saw him, a wave of dread washed over her. She realized that chasing after fleeting thrills wasn't the answer to healing her broken heart. Just as she was about to leave, her phone buzzed with a notification. It was Mark, posting a video on social media from the very place they had once dreamed of visiting. But he wasn't alone. A woman stood beside him, laughing and enjoying the moment, clearly having a wonderful time. Jessica's heart sank, as if someone had punched her in the gut. It was clear now. He no longer wanted her. Anger surged inside her, but instead of lashing out, she felt a strange clarity. Turning to Tom, she already knew what she had to do. "I can't do this," she said quietly. "I really need to go home." Tom was confused, but Jessica shook her head. "I need to sort out my life. I can't be someone's second choice." Returning home, Jessica felt a deep emptiness, but there was also a flicker of hope. She spent the next few days reflecting on her actions, acknowledging her mistakes, and understanding the pain she had caused Mark. A few weeks later, Jessica took a deep breath and sent Mark a message. "I'm sorry. I hope you can find peace." To her surprise, he replied days later, "I've had time to think too. I don't know where we stand, but I'm willing to talk." That conversation led to a meeting. They sat face to face in a quiet room, the air thick with tension, but also a sliver of hope. They shared their feelings, their hurt, and their desires. "I don't want to lose you," Jessica confessed, tears welling in her eyes. Mark's expression softened. "I don't want to lose you either, but we need to rebuild trust, and that's going to take time." Jessica nodded, understanding that this was just the beginning. Together, they would begin the slow process of rebuilding what had been broken.